All right, welcome in to Hail Varsity pregame as it is Nebraska basketball facing off against Michigan in a top 5 matchup on the road and the biggest game in school history for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Welcome in. We are at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. It's a special edition Hail Varsity pregame here at the bar, of course, and I'm joined myself, Austin Jacobsen, with Ravi Lulla, host of Hurrdat Sports Live. Ravi, how do we feel? Are you bleeding red today?
I am, I got my Nebraska outline hat on. It's black, but it still counts.
It counts, yes.
Still rocking with the Huskers here. No, this is a big game. This is a big day. Obviously, the first top 5 matchup in Nebraska history, but I don't know. Like this probably isn't appropriate, but we'll start there. I like to call these Xanax games, right?
Okay.
Like sometimes you get so amped up before a game that you're just like, man, I can't keep this level of hype the entire day because you wake up that way,
yes,
right? It's one of the few times in Nebraska basketball history where you wake up with that feeling, right? And you sit there and you go, holy crap, this is the day. This is it. And so this is a Xanax game. You might need to have a little calm me down early in the day. Some people maybe, have a beverage or something
right, yeah.
that helps it out. But that's what today is. And that's a good thing.
Yes.
Xanax games are a good thing. It sounds negative, right? But It's not. It's a good thing to be in a position where it matters so much that you have to calm yourself down a little in order to get through the day into the game.
Well, it's an anxious game, not a nervous game. And I think that's one of the biggest differences for Nebraska ball as they go into Ann Arbor. They're ready for a road matchup. You wish this game was obviously at PBA just down the road here.
Absolutely.
But it's almost so fitting that it's, again, another narrative for Nebraska basketball, a chance to right all the wrongs that have happened in their previous history. And it's a chance for them to move forward, not only today in this huge matchup, but also for the remainder of their season, because for whatever reason, Nebraska still has plenty to prove when it comes to its national narrative and everything else. Now, before we get too far into what this game looks like and pregame talk and all that sort of stuff of what to expect, obviously some updates. We did have the availability report come out about an hour ago. It did list Braden Frager as out for the contest, and Rink Mast joins Frager on that injury report as questionable for an illness. Our very own Mike Sauter, who we will talk to later on in our pregame show, tweeted this about 30 minutes ago, that Rink is as a game time decision as it gets, and he did not join the warm-ups with 90 minutes on the pregame clock before tip. We are about 57 minutes away from tip-off. If you are listening anywhere across on YouTube, X, Facebook, or anywhere on the Hail Varsity or Hurrdat Sports channels, make sure, obviously, you come down to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill to watch the game. But Ravi, as you kind of get ready for this and you take in not only Frager being out, which, to be honest, we somewhat expected, but for Rink Mast, that is a huge, significant loss. But does it really detriment Nebraska even further down than where they already were as double-digit underdogs?
Yeah, so this is tough because the illness thing is always rough because you don't actually know, and maybe Nebraska knows more and they're trying to have some gamesmanship with Michigan here, but you don't really know what you're going to get out of somebody with an illness. With Frager, he's out. I was told shortly before, and Mike will get into this, we recorded it. He's in the stadium.
Yes.
So make sure you follow him and our channels for coverage live from Ann Arbor. But we talked to him, and if Frager didn't get on the plane, so we kind of knew that was going to happen. The Rink thing is you don't know what you're going to get out of him necessarily, and that's harder to plan around. And Rink is actually a really key piece to this game tonight because, we talked to John Fanta on the morning show today, and he talked about mobilizing the bigs for Michigan, getting them out on the perimeter, making them uncomfortable and getting away from kind of the paint area. And Rink is a big part of that. Him knocking down a couple threes would be huge. Bearcay knocking down a couple threes would be huge. Obviously, as I talked about on the show this morning, getting Price Sanford to get Yaxel or one of those guys to chase him around all day is going to be huge. So if all of a sudden you take Rink out of that equation, it starts to get a little bit, you almost have to completely revamp your game plan because my immediate thought is, okay, if there's no Rink or a severely limited Rink Mast, I almost try and go full small ball.
Yeah.
I'm talking Bearcay at the 5, Cale Jacobsen at the 4, You go Price at the 3, or the Kale and Price can flip-flop, and then Jamarcus and Sam, and you almost just try and make it that much more miserable for Michigan, because you got to figure, okay, Leo Curtis hasn't played enough to ask him to be put in that position. That's not, like, maybe you put him out there for a few minutes and see if you get surprised, but that's not a fair thing to do to a guy. You haven't really gotten floor spacing consistently from Jared Garcia, and that's frankly not something he's done at all in his career.
Yep.
Like, if you look at his numbers, that's not something that has been a strength of his. He has other strengths, that just hasn't been it. So you're sitting here and you go, okay, if I'm depleted in bigs, my chances of matching up big for big, which already weren't great, becomes pretty detrimental to what I'm trying to do here. I'm probably losing the rebounding battle anyway. So what else can I do to make things difficult for Michigan? And to me, that's lean all the way into small ball. Berke can defend good enough at the 5. He's probably their best defender at the 5 anyway. So you can live with him at the 5. He can be a little bit more mobile and athletic than Rink. And then you have to shoot the lights out and get the bigs really, really uncomfortable. You can get them in foul trouble that way. Like, there's a lot of things that can go right for you once you get into a small ball situation. But if Rink isn't 100% healthy, I think that's the direction you have to lean.
And of course, there is that argument, and I was talking with you earlier about this today, that, well, Rink has sometimes had his minutes reduced, and there has been some opportunities where Nebraska's been successful without Rink on the floor. Those, of course, came against Oregon and Northwestern just a few weeks ago, where Rink played 17 and 20 minutes. Since then, he played 33 against Washington at home, 33, and matched that at Minnesota, obviously 2 Nebraska wins. In Nebraska's biggest wins of the season, at Illinois, an 83-80 win back in earlier this month. It was 34 minutes. And then against Michigan State, it was 36 minutes in that home win that came just at the beginning of the new year, of course. So you look at kind of that just reliability of Rink Mast. Obviously, it's another big part of just what you mentioned with the size matchup, but he provides so many other aspects of the game too. And then you add in Frager not being available. That makes the whole small ball argument just so much harder to do. But yet, at every turn of this season, especially in the Indiana games and then the last contest against Minnesota, it feels like Nebraska has been able to answer the bell every single time something has not went right, and they've been able to adjust and overcome. But it usually begins with a Price Sanford moment, and usually him shooting the lights out like you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to put this out there. If Nebraska has Rink Mast for less than 20 minutes tonight and finds a way to win the game, they should be the number 1 team in the country. Like, I'm not even that's a great argument. Like, I don't even know how you argue against that. If you go to Ann Arbor, don't have arguably your best player for his normal minutes. You just went off over 30 every time they have a big win, right? And then you go and beat what has been one of the best teams in the country all year long, and you still win that game. Like, that's the number 1 team in the country. I'm sorry, Arizona, you lose all your votes. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that to me is unequivocally true. And I don't know if that's how it's going to go or not, but I'm saying that is how it should be if they come up with this win without a fully healthy Rink Mast. You're right, though. Frager would have played a huge role in a small ball lineup. Like, that makes the small ball thing dramatically less appealing, because your depth kind of you look around and you're like, okay, what now? Like, Jared Garcia probably ends up playing the 5 when Berke needs some minutes. And that's about it. You run out of options in a hurry.
You're also going to be asking of a bigger Kale Jacobsen role than what you probably got ready for.
Kale Jacobsen's probably, if you're going a small ball or if you have to work around Rink Mast illness, you're probably asking for 30 minutes from Kale Jacobsen, which you're already going to be asking for 30 from Berke and Price and all the other guys, obviously. So, and here's the part where that becomes troublesome without a Braden Frager. You could maybe get away with that for one game with a 7-man rotation. A 6-man rotation against the tempo that Michigan likes to play becomes really, really challenging. So Nebraska, I think, has to do a really good job of being patient on the offensive end of the floor and trying to, and you got to stay disciplined on the defensive end of the floor. The defensive end is not something Nebraska's had a hard time staying disciplined with for most part this year. And frankly, they're usually pretty good on offense at it too, but you have to be so deliberate in a situation like this where you might be running a short rotation and you're trying to do something a little bit different from your skill set, because you really have to try and limit their possessions and give yourself an opportunity to stay close. Again, maybe this is like rink mass game 5 against the Utah Jazz Jordan flu game, and it doesn't everything we're talking about doesn't matter.
Right.
But assuming that isn't the case, and if you're Fred Hoiberg, I think you have to plan for that not to be the case. I really do think you have to give yourself an opportunity by kind of not almost fundamentally changing the way you've played all year, which is a really hard thing to do in a 1-game sample size when you thought rink mass was healthy probably 24 hours ago.
But again, you take into account the things that Nebraska's been successful with: older roster, more experienced. These guys have played a lot of basketball. So if you're going to adjust and move around, the guys you're going to ask to have been not only in this system, but been playing college basketball for some time. Let's talk maybe some advantages Nebraska still may have against the number 3 team, even away from home. One of the biggest ones is actually, according to Bartovic, the defensive rebound rate that Nebraska has. They're in the top 60 range. Michigan, on the opposite side, and their offensive rebounding rate is 304th. So even without Mast, and despite the size differences that you have for Michigan, Nebraska may still be able to control some of the boards, at least on one end, and limit some of those extra opportunities that you were talking about for Michigan.
Yeah, so one of the problems with the offensive rebounding rate number, just to get a little bit deeper into that number, right? Part of the reason it's so low for Michigan is because they are number 1 in 2-point field goal efficiency in the country.
Correct,
right?
Yes.
So there's not a ton of opportunities.
Yes. So when you are shooting shots, you're making shots.
Yes, right? So there's not a ton of opportunities to go get those offensive rebounds.
It's skewed. I'm trying to be positive, Ravi. Come on,
totally
give me
understand
yeah.
that. But I do think this is a game where turnovers to me are more important than rebounds.
Okay.
Right? Rebounds for Michigan, I expect the rebounding war to go Michigan's way. If you're in Nebraska, you have to stay in touch as much as possible, right? You have to not get killed on rebounds. For me, the most important thing is second chance points. Offensive rebounds don't have to lead to second chance points, right? If you have long rebounds and you're resetting the shot clock, that's not a grab it, put back situation. So like not all offensive rebounds are created equal. Nebraska has some control over that. That's number one. The second thing is turnovers, which I think is more important in this game than the offensive rebounds, because Michigan's really, really good at getting points off turnovers. They're really good at getting into transition, having those, we call them, like the pick six turnovers, where it's in open court and all of a sudden they score before you even get down to that end. Like, you have to avoid those if you're Nebraska. The more you can limit that, the more you can survive some of these other places where Michigan has advantages. And again, if you're talking about a tempo and trying to control the tempo of the game, making good decisions with the basketball, not allowing pick six turnovers. Again, not all turnovers are created equal. You throw it, you kick it off your foot out of bounds under the basket. That's a way different turnover than having it picked off at half court and they get a dunk before you even cross the half court line.
Yep.
So, to me, that is going to play a huge part, both the number and type of turnovers, maybe more so than the offensive rebounds.
And even if Nebraska's missing two of their maybe best players, I mean, obviously you'd put Price Sanford, maybe one if you're power ranking, who is the most important, not only in this game, but the season, but missing Rink Mast and Frager for this contest. I think this stat still applies, that Nebraska's shot selection in general, I mean, they're one of the highest rate in just 2-point shots as well, similar to Michigan as well. But the way that Nebraska is just not taking any random shot, it's so different than years that we've seen before. And we had talked a little bit before, and I know you mentioned it on the morning show. I think you were talking just with Damon about it, about how exclusive some of the shot selection has been. And it's not even, sometimes you watch the games and it's not even just the extra pass. It's just a little bit more movement. It's finding that extra crease or that extra spot, not rushing the shot every single time. How important is that shot selection against a team in which, if you're going to have to play small ball, and maybe even a guy like Sam Hoiberg's going to be called upon to maybe take a few more of those?
Yeah, I mean, so it all comes down to sort of the efficiency part of it all, right? Be efficient with the ball by not turning it over. Be efficient. Like, I've always thought bad shots are turnovers.
Yes.
Right? So whether that's a quick three, where anytime you waste a possession, that's a turnover. It's like when you block a punt in football, it doesn't go down as a turnover. That's a turnover.
Yes.
Right? Like, that is maybe more impactful of a turnover than 90% of the interceptions you see, right? Because it is, the field position part of it usually is way more advantageous, and lots of other things, right? So I sit here and I go, okay, bad shots are turnovers. So when I talk about turnovers, that includes shot selection. And that includes not just taking good shots, but Nebraska has to take great shots. And that's one of the things they've been really, really good at this year.
Yes.
And one of the guys that I've praised for that specifically isn't playing in Braden Frager, but his ability, even when he's hot, to not take bad shots is actually really incredible. Like, if you haven't played basketball at a high level or been around guys that play basketball at a super high level before, the urge to take a heat check is overwhelming, right? Like, it's not even like it's sort of a cliche, but it's 100% accurate. If you're a good player or even a mediocre player and you hit 2 shots in a row, my God, that third one's going up, and it's probably going to be a terrible shot.
But even listening or watching these broadcasts, I can probably tell you on my hand, just one of them, how many times you hear a broadcaster talk about Nebraska basketball and say a heat check shot here, because it doesn't happen. The only person really is Price Sanford, and he has definitely earned the benefit of the doubt in that.
Absolutely. And even he doesn't take nearly as many as he's earned. Yeah. Right. Like, for the way he shoots the ball, he's 42% on the year from three.
Look back at the Illinois game. That was a moment in time in which he said, this is my day. I mean, the first half, I'm going to do the Price Sanford run, and I'm just going to win the game. Yes.
He had to, right? And so even then, I think there was an understanding of, I'm the only one that has this going right now. I have to keep us in this game. So my shot selection changes, right?
Yep.
And that ability for him to understand that moment, and not just him, but, Frager when he's playing, Hoiberg is really good at it too, of understanding, like, hey, this is not the time for me to take this shot. Even though he has improved on his 3-point percentage, or, Bearcay's gotten way better at this. Last year, some of the shots Bearcay took, I was just like, my God, my dude, what are we doing out here?
Well, it's either him and Braxton Mia. So, I mean, which one would you prefer?
Fair, but that's a really good point, is when he's put in a position that better fits his skill sets, his shot selection went off the charts.
Yes.
Way, way better, right? That's their ability to understand their role and what their role is in this offense, and what that means for their shot selection has been really, really important this year. Now, that does shift a little bit based on player availability now, right? They've gotten used to it for a couple games without Frager. That helps. Not having Mast in here now, depending on how available he is, that's one where you may have to recalibrate a little bit, especially if you're Bearcay, and especially for what we talked about, for what they need to do to Michigan in terms of drawing those bigs out of the paint, to give some of those back cuts and all that movement that we talked about, those super mysterious ghost screens that everybody loves so much. And
the Coach Jeff Smith ghost screen.
That's been like a pet peeve of mine just for like a few weeks now. It seems like nobody on earth talked about a ghost screen until 2026, and now it is all the rage. And it's
spooky.
Like, it's just slipping a screen. It's all it is. I get that it's usually a pop instead of a roll, but like, still, like a pick and roll and a pick and pop, like, it's still the same action.
Yeah.
A slip screen and a ghost, it's still the same action, right? Anyway, but no, like, you have to have a little bit better spacing and a little bit more room for those things to work.
Yeah.
And so Bearcay has to understand that. Bearcay has to understand, like, hey, if I make one of these early, it doesn't even have to be a 3. If it makes like a 15-footer early, that creates just a little bit more space, a little bit more gravity away from the hoop, to give some room for all the movement that Nebraska likes to do. So to me, that's huge, is being able to recalibrate on the fly what's a good shot for me in this moment, because not all shots are created equal. There's some days where, hey, this is a great shot for Bearcay. There's some days where it's like, Price has made 12 in a row. Maybe we give Price the ball here no matter what, right? So, like, not all good shots are created equal, and being able to calibrate that on the fly, I think, is going to be really important.
Let's talk mentality and effort, because that's one thing that a lot of people have credited for Nebraska's survival in some of these second half deficits that they had faced coming out of halftime on road matchups at Indiana and, of course, at Minnesota in their last contest. We saw the viral moment with Fred Hoiberg chewing out the team. Coach Nate, obviously one of the assistants in there too, from the cinematic recap posted by the Huskers earlier this weekend. But when you look at what changed from maybe effort, maybe it was scheme, but if nothing else, Nebraska's, I guess, attention to focus, if that makes any sense, or their ability to put more effort towards, hey, we just got to lock in on these next possessions, and that will change the game. I thought it was most apparent in the Indiana game, because you could tell that they were somewhat frustrated with the way that contest was going, but all they did was basically pick their 3 straight possessions, a score, a stop, and a score, And the entire game started to flip from there, and then they began their second half comeback. And against Minnesota, they just had to get the game back within reach, and then they were able to push past from there. What have you seen from this team, maybe in those two games or other examples, maybe in just some of the bigger matchups that they've had, that focus has really helped Nebraska obviously be undefeated, but also overcome some of their first half mistakes or mistakes in bigger moments, like against maybe Michigan State or some of the other close games?
Yeah, I mean, so it's really one of the most impressive things about this team is there's some days when you're going through the course of a basketball season where like you just don't have it.
Yeah.
Right. And the ability to figure that out in real time and dial back in, because, and Fanta brought this up, it was a great point earlier this morning, is so many teams' defensive efforts are reliant upon their offensive success, right? You make a shot, then you've got energy, right? It's the cliche about you got to feed the big man so he defends on the other end, right? Nebraska just defends for the most part. That was sort of the weird part about Minnesota and giving up 40 first half points in that game, because Nebraska really wasn't defending at the level that we're used to or that we've become accustomed to. So you sit there and you go, okay, Nebraska doesn't have that margin for error that you talked about today that they had against Indiana or Minnesota, where they have time to dial back in, especially being shorthanded. They have to be dialed from the start. Now, we know they're capable of that because we've seen it. But that's a situation where you cannot afford those mental lapses where you have a 4-minute stretch where you're like, oh man, they kind of got on top of us there a little bit. If Fred sees that happening, Hoiberg, we're on a first name basis. If Fred Hoiberg sees that happening, he's got to get timeouts and break that immediately. He can't wait till halftime against Michigan because by that point it might be too late.
Yeah.
There is a huge importance on that focus, because if you're able to stay dialed in, then you're able to execute all the things that we've talked about being deliberate on offense and being super disciplined on defense. Like, those are all focus things. It's not a lack of ability or a lack of awareness. That is a focus from millisecond to millisecond to do the right thing in every single moment. And that is exhausting,
yes,
right? Even if it's not physically exhausting, it is exhausting to do. Hopefully the adrenaline from being in the first top 5 matchup ever represents itself in the ability to have the energy to stay focused the entire game and stay mentally locked in the entire game, and doesn't present itself in nerves and anxiety about playing in the first top 5 game ever.
So I want to touch a little bit on that, because I wanted to hit the history books and see what obviously the biggest matchup pre this season were unranked games for Nebraska, because obviously they've had a few of them this year. Number 23, Nebraska traveled to Illinois back in December. They win 83-80. Nebraska moves up the rankings right before or right after the new year. They are 13 and they beat number 9 Michigan State 58-56. This, of course, is a 5 and a 3 matchup. But prior to that, I have to go back to 1992 when Nebraska played in the Rainbow Classic on December 28th against number 6 Michigan. 20th ranked Nebraska fell 88-73 that day. That was the highest ranked unranked matchup that I could find prior to that. The one that's actually just, it's a ranked unranked, but doesn't have the same gravitas because it wasn't a top 10 team. Number 24 Nebraska at number 25 Iowa back in 2019 on January 6th, where Nebraska lost 93-84. Those games don't matter to this game at all.
No.
They have no bearing on this. And I would even argue that maybe even some of the games that Nebraska has played before in this season don't matter in this game either, because of the circumstance of Fraker and Mast and everything that comes with it. That being said, you're battle tested. You're here for this moment. And Nebraska's not looking into the lights and going to get blinded. I have a very strong conviction that Nebraska is more ready for this moment, regardless of who's available and who's able to play, more than any Nebraska team before them, not because they're number 5, but because they've been through this before this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally fair. You know, like Illinois was 13 when they played them. As you mentioned, Michigan State was 9. Michigan State and Illinois have both improved in the rankings since then and shown, oh, those wins are maybe even a little better than we thought they were in real time. And you look at it, if you're Nebraska, and go, we're fully capable in this moment. That's the thing that, you know, that's the only part that matters when it comes to, have we done this before and can we do it again? Is just having something recent proof of concept to say, this is a thing we are fully capable of doing. There is no question because they've already done it. You can look at Michigan State or you can look at Michigan and say, are they actually better than Michigan State? Different team for sure.
Yeah.
But you go, are they actually better than Michigan State? You can look at Illinois, who's constructed maybe a little bit more similarly to Michigan. And you go, how much better is Michigan than that Illinois team that's also a top 10 team? I mean, we're talking about 6 spots in the rankings. Like, we're talking about a 2 versus a 3, or basically, right? So you sit there and you go, why would I think we are not capable in this moment? And that's what matters. You're right. It doesn't, I get kind of annoyed about, I was talking about it on the morning show about like the history of the Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl that happened 11 years ago. Who cares?
Right.
Literally not a soul on the Seahawks is still there.
Yep.
Including their coaching staff.
Well, their GM, but
their GM is the only guy.
Yes.
And guess what? He's not strapping it up.
Fair.
He's,
that's a good point.
And
good
so,
argument.
Like this like, oh, the history of they've never done this. It's the same thing with the, like
the only people that care about the history are the ones that aren't playing in this game.
Yeah.
That's the only, exactly.
And that's fine. But like, I also don't, even goes to the NCAA tournament things. Like nobody on this team has anything to do with that.
Yeah.
The only ones that have anything a little bit to do with that are Jamarcus Lawrence and Rink Mass, because they played in one of those games, right? Yep. But we're not talking about this isn't an NBA franchise where you've got 10 years of history with the same group of guys. And it's like, oh yeah, like Jerry West lost 11 times to the Celtics. It's like, yeah, that was probably in his dome a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right? Like that's fair to be like, yeah, that might be living rent free with the logo. But that's not what this is. This Nebraska team has only known that they're capable of whatever is put in front of them.
Absolutely.
And that's what matters in this situation. So like the history is good for fans and talk shows and whatever, but recent history, what we've seen from this team is all they need to draw on.
Yeah, and not to make it obviously the simple analogy that we've heard so many times that Nebraska basketball is the Indiana football of the season and all that other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the mentality, I hate to give too much credit to it, but obviously Indiana football had a certain mentality that got them to a national title. Nebraska is going to have to bring that same mentality, and I'd argue they've had that throughout this entire season, and definitely after the Michigan State game, because there was some sort of belief that moved them forward. And you know why I think that is? Because Nebraska then went on to beat a lowly Oregon team who was completely off their rocker. Then they went on the road and they won at Northwestern. They took care of the second half against a Minnesota team that they were better than. Those are games that old Nebraska would have dropped one of those. They would have overlooked opponents, and they have overlooked opponents. We saw it less than a year ago, right? In the same moment when they had to win one conference game to get to an NCAA tournament bid, they couldn't do it. And yet this team is constructed differently. Correct. Yes, they have more impactful players. Absolutely. But ever since Nebraska has taken down either Illinois, Michigan State, whichever one you want to say was the bigger win for mentality, for focus, for whatever, they have been able to control their narrative moving forward. And that narrative continues on tonight, but they're actually a part of a bigger plan now, and they know that they have a huge opportunity. And they're not going to shy away from this opportunity. That is the biggest point of all of this, that the lights will not be too bright. If other things and other circumstances outside of their control with injuries and illness get in the way, that it is what it is. But regardless, Nebraska is holding all the cards tonight, and they know that they can play a great hand.
Absolutely. And like, listen, you can look even right after that Michigan State game, right? In past years, Nebraska 100% loses to Ohio State that next time.
Yes.
That next game.
Yep.
Right. It's a 3-point game on the road, top 10 for the, for the first time this season.
When you look back, I mean, they had the Purdue win at home, then they lose the next game, and then they beat a Wisconsin team, and then they fall, I mean, that happened every year.
This is the thing that Nebraska does. And you sit here and you go, okay, so that's when it started to feel different. And that's where they can draw on this and say, hey, this is a totally different team than Nebraska's ever been before. All that matters is what we've been this year. And being free from those burdens is actually really, really powerful. That's one of the things that, you just had to bring up Curt Cignetti. That's one of the things.
I did not bring him up. You said it. You said the name.
That's one of the things that Indiana football was able to do, is just free from the burdens of their past failures, right? And I would argue that's one of the things that Nebraska football has struggled with, is being free from the burdens of their past failures. And Nebraska basketball hasn't had that problem this year. They go out, they beat the teams that they're not supposed to beat, they beat the teams they are supposed to beat, and they just find a way to make it happen. And now they go in against the best team they've played. And let's be clear, with full strength, not with full strength, I think this would be the best win any team has on their resume in the country this year.
On the road, top 3 win.
There's a couple arguments like Iowa State at Mackey Arena and just throttling Purdue comes to mind. You could
argue that Michigan's Gonzaga win could be up there as well. Yeah.
But again, those are non-conference, which I don't count quite as highly because you don't have the same familiarity with those teams.
Yeah.
And obviously conference games just count for more. So,
and Nebraska's doing this on 3 days rest. I mean, like they're coming off of a road trip and then going back out where they flew back to Lincoln and then went to Ann Arbor.
So I look at this and I go, to me, this would be the best win anybody has in the country if they're able to get it. And that matters as part of this too. So all that being said, I think Nebraska's got an opportunity in front of them. And whether it goes their way or not, I don't think it has anything to do with past issues of Nebraska basketball. What it has everything to do with is if it doesn't go their way today, it's going to be like, well, Rick Mass wasn't healthy and we didn't have Braden Frager. And I hope we see those guys in the Big Ten tournament because I'd like another crack at them on a neutral floor.
Yep.
Like that's what this game would be about if they aren't able to pull it off. Not, well, Nebraska, this is Nebraska basketball, whatever. Like they've already killed all of those narratives.
Yep. I don't think that there's a result that happens tonight where Nebraska is not given credit for what they have had through 20 games so far this season. But regardless, obviously they're going to play the game and tip-off is coming in about 29 minutes. The game is on Peacock, which if you don't have a subscription, the best way to watch is here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Now,
hold on.
You got it.
We got some swag.
That's what I was getting to. You beat me to it. Come on. I was going to say we do have some giveaways going on right now. So, Ravi, what are we going to be giving away for people who are at Hurrdat Sports Bar?
We'll have 2 prize packages. All you have to do is show up. They'll hand you a raffle ticket as soon as you walk in. You got some time to get down here still. We're not going to give it away for about another 20 minutes. We'll do it right before tip-off. You can win one of these lovely hats. We got the Nebraska State. That's the Lincoln hat. The Game Day in the Corn State and the Nebraska Outline hat. We have Supernovas tickets right here for you.
Yes, in the envelope and clearly marked as well.
Supernovas. We've got gift cards to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and we have this lovely Hurrdat brand goods Omaha Supernovas hoodie here.
Yep.
Look at that thing.
A lot of good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. So again, make sure you're coming out to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. You don't want to pay for the full Peacock subscription. You want to just watch a game. And then you can say, well, the money I was going to spend on the subscription more to here, I'm going to spend it on beer and wings because that's the best combo for Nebraska basketball.
100%.
And because Nebraska needs you here at the bar to provide that energy out to Michigan.
They can feel it.
That's how it works. That's how it goes. Because the louder you cheer here, the more 3-pointers Price Sanford makes there. That's just how it works. That's just math.
That's science. Yeah, I believe that is physics.
All right. So before we get to any of these great giveaways, you were able to talk with our Hail Varsity analyst for Nebraska basketball, Mike Sauter, earlier today. This was prior to some of the injury news that we obviously know now, but Ravi and Mike were able to talk a little bit about this matchup and preview the game from Mike's perspective as he's been covering the team all season long.
Now on the special edition of Hail Varsity pregame show is Mike Sauter. He is not currently in his basement as he appears to be here. He'll be in Michigan by the time you hear this. No, I kind of want to rewind a little bit and talk about how we got here, right? Because even if you were optimistic on this team this year, like obviously 20-0 was not on the table for anybody.
Nobody thought.
Probably, I mean, I feel comfortable saying nobody felt like top 5 in the country was on the table at any point this season. Like at what point over the course of the first 20 games of the year did you go, oh, whatever I thought about this team, I have to throw away and start from scratch because there's something entirely different?
Yeah, it was Illinois.
Okay.
The win at Illinois was the jumping off, like, oh, this team's pretty good. Like,
because people forget before that there wasn't a lot on the resume.
No, like you had Wisconsin, who they hammered, right?
Yeah.
And then Creighton and K-State and Oklahoma. Those were your biggest wins.
Mm-hmm.
And basically all 4 of those teams are fighting to get into the tournament. Well, K-State not, but like they're all kind of bubbly-ish, right in that group. So, and Wisconsin's probably on the other side of the bubble, on the right side. But still,
they're better now than we thought they were then, right?
Right. But still, like Wisconsin or Creighton, depending on what you think, was their best win, or Oklahoma, and you didn't think that, especially on the road. To be quite honest, we talked before the season, and I said, listen, if they win two of the 4 bigger non-conference games, and if they go 10-10 in conference, they will be on the bubble and probably in as a 9 seed.
Mm-hmm.
They're clearly in the NCAA tournament, and they're probably better than a 9 seed right at the moment.
I think that's fair. Fair.
Yeah. But Illinois was the jump off. Like that win was huge, especially on the road at Illinois. It's a really tough place to play. And it wasn't like, oh, students weren't there. There's no excuses for that win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there isn't any. And so that one, and then after Michigan State, after beating Michigan State, that was another kind of okay, like this team's legit. So yeah.
That's it's interesting to kind of think about, because I think at the time too, we look back and go, oh, well, maybe Illinois is not what we thought they were. And, oh, maybe Michigan State's not what they thought they were. We're 2/3 of the way through the season. Illinois is who everybody thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State's who everybody thought they were. Wisconsin's better than we thought they were.
Right.
Pretty much every step along the way, any excuses, or maybe excuses isn't the right word, but any like caveats that we could put on the Nebraska season have pretty much gotten blown to pieces.
Right.
Like, there's nothing left to say, oh, but there's no buts left on the table.
No, there isn't. There isn't like, oh, but their win was against this, or they haven't played anybody or whatever. No, they played people. Like it's and particularly Illinois and Michigan State, 2 teams that like you could say could win a national title, or
Top 2
at least,
seeds.
or at least be in a Sweet 16. Like, I mean, you could say that and no one would blink at you. No one would fight that. So, I mean, then you handle business on the road too, which is something in the league is really hard to do. Especially, at Indiana, that one was a little sneaky, and at Ohio State was a little sneaky. So they're just finding a way, and it's kind of fun. It's really fun actually to be, locked in on them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to be, kind of in the day-to-day of it like you are, because, a lot of people will kind of like pop in and pop out, and they'll see a game here or there and kind of have takes, especially on the national scene, right? They can't watch every team, every game, right?
Right.
So they sort of have these takes about who Nebraska is or what the narratives are. And I find the Fred Hoiberg part of this super interesting, right? Because it feels like to me, he totally reinvented himself on the fly. Mm-hmm. And I think this part of him was always in there. But even if you go back to his, like stylistically, his success at Iowa State, even if you don't go to the roster construction part of it, like the teams didn't look like this necessarily. Like, what have you seen, especially on the offensive side? Because we talk about Nate Lenzer and the defense quite a bit, and rightfully so, which we'll get to with the matchup for Michigan in here in a second. But like, I want to talk to you a little bit about the offensive side of things with Fred Hoiberg and how that sort of revolution has gone almost unnoticed.
Yeah, and I would say, a couple of huge keys to that is Jamarcus Lawrence coming back after a year of playing point guard at Rhode Island, which he played well, but him coming back has been a huge piece. And that I don't think Jamarcus gets talked about enough in this run. It is Sam Hoiberg and Price Sanford, and then Braden Frager, and like, Rink was at the beginning and all that. But like, I think Jamarcus is the probably, I don't know, unsung hero of the team, if that's, a thing. You could say that about a number of, probably everybody. but I think Jamarcus has had a huge impact, and Fred Hoiberg brought up again, he brings up all the time, smart pace, and the way he knows what Fred wants and knows when to push and knows when to pull. And he just has a really, really good IQ for what Fred wants offensively. Mm-hmm. And frankly, they are running some great stuff to get Price Sanford the ball. So look at Minnesota. Had 2 shots. They didn't play hard at all. Obviously, we saw the video. But he had 2 shots and had 2 points, and those 2 points were free throws. And they weren't finding him. And he right away made it an effort to get him the ball. And whether it's coming off that double screen at the top of the key and curl, and then it's a back cut curl thing, just to get him touches and get to the rim. He got to the free throw line on that after 2 minutes into the second half, made those free throws. And I was actually sitting next to BC. I go, that's going to get him going. I was like, those free throws are going to get him going. And they did. And it just found a way to okay, we got to get him going. And then it did. It just, then the dam broke, I guess, a little bit. So offensively, what they're doing, one, they have the pieces to fit what Fred really, really wants to do. And especially Rink being such, when I say ball handler, I don't mean dribbler breaking people down. I mean, ball handler, think of a quarterback in a read option. He
decision maker.
Yes, he's a great decision maker with the ball. And when he gets the ball to the high post, there's DHO actions that they run, and he's the ball handler in that, and he's making the right decisions. And it's not, I don't think anyone's stolen the ball from him when he's gotten the ball at the high post all year. Maybe it's happened 1 or 2 times, but it's not a all the time thing. So he's a great decision maker with the ball, and I think that is a huge piece. That, and you have other guys like Sam Hoiberg. When Sam shot the ball last year, whether it be a layup at the rim or a 3-pointer, you were like, oh, I don't know.
It was a win for the defense every time he shot the ball.
Yeah, if it went in, you were like, sweet. And now it's you expect him to make all those. So that growth that he's had too, it's just another shooter on the floor to help it. So but obviously Price has been a huge catalyst for the offense and what it's been doing. But there's slip actions and all kinds of stuff. Ghost screen actions. They have so many sets. I talked to Minnesota assistant coach actually before the Minnesota game, and he goes, and he had the scout, and he said they run so many actions, so many sets. You just have to be ready for it all. And I'm like, yeah, they do, and I don't think you're going to be able to stop it.
So let's move on to Michigan. Obviously, that's the reason for the occasion here. You brought up big and strong and NBA type bodies. Michigan's got a plethora of them. What are you seeing as you've kind of gone through your preview, your write-up with Michigan?
Yeah, well, every single analytic is very good.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Every single thing says Michigan is amazing. And you look at the blowouts they've had against top 25 teams at the time. I think Auburn, they were a top 25 team at the time, and but blowing out Gonzaga the way they did was something, right?
Yeah, so, Gonzaga's really good.
Yeah, Gonzaga's very good. It's also one of those things, though. There's 3 areas, right? So Nebraska is probably not going to out-rebound Michigan because Michigan goes 7'3", 6'9", 6'9". Basically 7-footers, 3 of them. So they're probably not going to out-offensive rebound. They're probably not going to out-defensive rebound. So what do you got to do? You got to take smart shots. You got to play with the smart pace, and you can't just go, run and gun. So you're going to have to maybe slow it down a little bit, at least to, hopefully that works, because if you get down, you're done, right? Like if you get down double figures, coming back is going to be hard, even though Michigan does play very fast. So they could miss some shots, but I think that's a key, is tempo and pace is going to be a key, because Michigan has the 4th best average possession length, which is 14.6. That's incredible, right? Like that's playing extremely fast, and their adjusted tempo on KenPom 72.5, which is 11th in the country. Think, and I asked Hoiberg about his availability. Think Michigan State game plan, where you're going to have to just get back. Like, you're not going to crash the boards on offense. You're just going to get back, and you're going to play solid defense, because that's something Nebraska obviously does very, very well. The other little nugget, there's two little nuggets that I think are in Nebraska's favor in particular, is Nebraska wants 25 deflections a game. That's their target number. That's their goal. No one's talked about that publicly, but that's their goal. So if they can get 25, if they can hit that number, I think they'll be fine. Or if their hand activity is a lot, even forcing, Michigan to throw the ball away and, turnover. Michigan's non-steal turnover rate, and Ravi, I love this, is 264th in the country. That's really high. That's their offensive non-steal turnover rate is 8.2%. That's 264th in the country. There's only 365 teams in Division I basketball. That is clearly Nebraska's advantage there, because they just kind of chuck it. Maybe it's a thing where they don't have, more than one ball handler because they play the three bigs all the time. That's probably part of it. And they also play fast. So hitting fast breaks and taking chances, probably a part of it too. But if Nebraska can be very on point, as Fred likes to say all the time, with their hand activity, I think that's a major key. The other one is 3-point shooting. So Michigan defensively is 36.8 or 30th is their point distribution on 3-pointers. Now they give up 30.2% 3-pointers defensively. So they give up 30.2. Nebraska, on the other hand, is shooting 35.5% from three this whole season. So 30, 35, hit that in the middle. If Nebraska can be at 33.5, 33%, feel good. If they can be at 35%, you feel really good. So I think those are the only real clear advantages that I can really see from the analytical data that will be, are my keys to the game. I think those, let's review. So pace, tempo, think Michigan State, what Nebraska did to Michigan State. That's one. So there's 4. And then non-steal turnover rate in 3. So there's 3 of them basically. And don't get out offensive rebounded by more than 8, right? Don't get out rebounded by 12.
Yeah.
If you be rebounded by 8 or 10, probably okay. But if it's more than 10, it's probably not good, right? Yeah. So and so those, I think, are the keys to the game.
Listen, if they get this one on the road at Michigan, all bets are off, man. Not that they're not already, but all bets are off.
If they can win this one on the road at Michigan, you're looking at a national title contender without a question.
Mike, appreciate the time and enjoy the game. And like I said, let's go get one.
All right, welcome back to Hail Varsity pregame. We are live from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in La Vista. We've got giveaways going on. People still coming in the doors. If you're not on your way here yet, you better start getting on your way here, because we're lining up here. People ordering the tater tots, the onion rings, all the good stuff. So there's
the tots go hard.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah. Best tots in Omaha. The people are saying. That's what
many people are
That's
saying.
what I was told. I'm Austin. That is Ravi. We've got 11 minutes before official tip-off, or at least when the Peacock broadcast will once again start. We asked you a little bit before. I know you talked about it a little bit there with Mike, but now that we know the injury situations, what has changed with Braden Frager officially out, ranked masked, we don't know what his availability necessarily is. He is questionable with an illness. Who is the most important player tonight for Nebraska basketball?
I think I'm going to go Jamarcus Lawrence.
A lot of people in chat are agreeing with you. There's a lot of big Jamarcus Lawrence big game tonight.
So Price has to be a given.
Price be Price. That's basically it, right?
He's been over 20 points 4 straight games. He has to be a given. He cannot be an X factor. He's got to be huge tonight, right? But if it's just Price, that's not enough, right? Especially with the injury to Frager, and the question of ring mass availability. part of me thought about Bearcade Buchanan Joe. Like that, he's going to be really, really important tonight. But I think if they're playing the type of game I think they need to, which is making really deliberate decisions on offense and being really, really patient, inevitably that leaves you with some tough shot making at the end of shot clocks. And Jamarcus Lawrence is the best guy. He's the guy that's best equipped to make those shots.
Yes.
If he is able to do that, this is a game that is very much in Nebraska's grasp of winning.
Okay, so the line has adjusted slightly. It did open about 2.5 days ago at 10.5. It has now moved to Michigan's favor at 11.5. How do you feel about just the double-digit underdog narrative that Nebraska continues to kind of fight? I mean, obviously you can't control where people are going to put their money, all that other stuff. But when this line opened, I think a lot of people, especially Nebraska fans themselves, we felt disrespected. I mean, truthfully, you should feel you're the number 5 team in the country, have not yet suffered a loss. And yes, the line moves an extra point because you're out one of your key players, if not maybe your best. But yet 11.5, that's how you feel about us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Nebraska should be a double-digit point underdog to anybody in the country.
Yep.
Like, I just don't think that's accurate. That being said, with the questionable availability of Rink Mass, with Braden Frager, the report coming out that he's out, that to me does move this in a direction closer to that. Like, it's on the road. You're undermanned. I understand it being in the high single digits. I think Nebraska should have earned enough respect that being a double-digit underdog to anybody at any point in the country is, I think, out of pocket.
Yeah.
Like, I think even with the injuries, I'd have put this at about 8.5, maybe 9. Being 11.5 to me is crazy. Now, listen, if they're not able to execute the way that we've talked about, like, yeah, Michigan could absolutely win by that amount.
Yep.
I also think Nebraska can win this game. So
yeah.
That to me, I think this should have been somewhere in like the 7.5 to 9.5 range, considering the injuries.
Okay, so I'll ask you on the opposite side in the total, 156.5. Can I make the argument at 156.5 if Nebraska fans want to see this game be a Husker victory by the end of it, that number has to be dramatically lower?
I don't know about how dramatically, but definitely lower.
Okay.
I think Nebraska, if they're keeping Michigan out of their pace and tempo, has a much better shot at this game, especially being shorthanded. I think if they can keep Michigan under 72, I feel dramatically better about how this game can go.
I'd 100% agree with you.
If you start getting into the like mid and high 70s, it feels like Michigan was able to play this game at the pace they wanted to, and that's going to be harder for Nebraska.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so as we kind of wrap this up, we're 7 minutes away from the tip-off. I asked you a little bit ago just about, in general, the complexity of this game as it turns into the biggest game in school history. Can I make the simple argument for you? And no, the guys on the floor are not going to be thinking about this at all, right? But this game, there's nothing to lose for Nebraska, truthfully. I mean, yes, you could have the first loss of the season, a historic season so far, but
all of your goals are still on the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that has to give Nebraska some sort of advantage, right? In the fact that, listen, we're out 2 of our top guys. We already have all these wins. We are pretty much locked into an NCAA tournament bid, regardless of what happens in the next stretch of the month and a half. No matter what happens tonight, we're good. So why not just go out and see what happens?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's less of a we've got nothing to lose and more of a nobody believes in us thing, right?
Okay.
It's the chip on your shoulder. It's the, hey, we're in the foxhole, we're outmanned, we're outgunned, and guess what? We don't care. Like, that to me is the mentality that you go into this game with. And listen, I'm not betting against them. Like, they've answered every test, they've answered every bell, whatever cliche you want to use, they've answered all of them this year. So until they stop doing that, and until I see something that shows me like, okay, here are some things where they were not able to go out and get it done, until that happens, I'm just going to keep riding this journey.
And I'll make another point to that too. For as talented and as good as Michigan has been in the beginning stretch of the season, where they were having these dominant blowout victories and they were just cruising past some of the non-conference teams, Big Ten teams alike, they have not had a team when they get out to a large lead or an insurmountable, success so far in that first half or start of the second half. A lot of those teams never fought back or punched back. Nebraska will.
Absolutely.
And
will.
I trust Nebraska in a low-scoring game. I trust Nebraska in a close game. I trust Nebraska to fight back in a second half if they are down in the first. I don't know that about Michigan. I like Nebraska's chances in that opportunity.
We look at a team in Auburn that we thought was better, that they beat by 30, and they're not as good now, and that's where they're at, right?
Yep.
We look at a Gonzaga team that they absolutely waxed, and that's a great win. Also on their resume, though, have to go to overtime to go to a Wake Forest team that's not very good. 4-point win against a TCU team that's not very good. 2-point win against a Penn State team that's just bad.
Yes.
A loss to a Wisconsin team that Nebraska absolutely waxed.
100%.
Only a 10-point win against Washington, same that Nebraska had. Only a 10-point win against an Oregon team that Nebraska waxed. So like there's a lot of results on here that people kind of forget about because some of the really big eye-popping ones are like, holy crap. Michigan has a super high ceiling they can get to when they play at that level. They also play down to like, if Nebraska can get this thing in the Penn State range or the TCU range, that's a win for Nebraska. In terms of like 67, 63, 74, 72, that's a recipe for Nebraska to win this game. And listen, these numbers have come way, way down from when they're scoring 100. Then it goes 74. They lose a game that they score 88 in, 82, 81, 86, 74. Like the numbers have come way, way down in terms of their offensive proficiency once they got into conference play. And I think there is a recipe here for Nebraska to win.
And we're rooting for the Big Red. If you want to root, make sure you're getting out here to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in La Vista. We've got giveaways to give away now, so we are going to let you get ready. Game is on Peacock. The tip-off is here in just a few minutes. That's Ravi Lulla. I'm Austin Jacobsen. This has been Hail Varsity pregame for your top 5 Nebraska Cornhuskers. Make sure you're checking out the Hurrdat Sports and Hail Varsity channels. Mike Sauter's on location as well. We have photographers. We've got phone videos. We've got everything you need for all the game day coverage today as it's Nebraska and Michigan. Go Big Red.